So as you did hear in the video, the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, is considering and asking all Unitarian Universalists to consider how to respond to this great and often frightening changes we are experiencing in our country and in the world, in a way, as she said, that both remains faithful to our transcendent values while allowing for a reinvention of our religious structures, of our practices and rituals and cultural norms, so that those values, our values, can flourish even in this transformed landscape. Meet the Moment, this work, is a framework to help UUs do this together across the nation, across the world, in the coming months and in the coming years. And it's a set of tools and processes designed to build a shared analysis about the terrain we're navigating, identify the most urgent and important needs and opportunities that are arising, and discern how our UU values are calling us to respond, and ultimately to design courageous, impactful strategies that we can try on together. I'd love for us to do this work here at PUC. And the first step in meeting the moment, doing this work, I believe, is thinking about what moment we are actually in. Some of those people started talking about it, but I'd like to take a little stab at it myself. So since the last presidential election, I have been feeling a strong sense of loss and a strong sense of grief, as I'm sure many of you have. The recent death of my mother last month helped me actually to frame this greater sense of grief that I'm feeling. See, my mother, as many of you saw in a video at one time, was this vibrant, free spirit with this incredible ability to inspire others. She was a public speaker and a trainer. And she raised me to be hopeful and to be positive, to believe that I could do anything that I set my mind and I set my heart to. And this country, too, the America that raised me, held the promise of a freedom that was inspirational, that made me proud of my citizenship, and encouraged me to believe that there were few barriers to living any way that I chose. Then, in the course of one day, the mother I knew was seemingly taken by a devastating stroke. And what seemed just as quick, really, was my dissolution of the notion that America was the country that I thought I knew. Although I had hope through therapy that my mother would improve and maybe even return to a version of her former self. But over the coming course of the months of her stroke and years, as her ability to speak and her ability to move barely showed any improvement, the slow realization that given her age and given the severity of her condition, she might never improve, produced a level of grief in me that I had never known. And in a similar way, I held out hope that we could halt the onset of authoritarianism in America. That we could do the work, that we could do the therapy, that whatever we could do to stop it from coming, but it's come. The fascists and the bigots became more and more emboldened to not only express their ideologies, but to have the power to implement them. And so I feel about our country a similar deep and abiding grief. The death of my mother was almost less shocking to me, to my system, because I knew my mother was mortal. She would die at some point. But naively, I thought America would continue as the country I thought I knew forever. In addition, I never doubted my mother's strength and love. Excuse me. But recent events have caused me to come to grips with the many lies I have been told about this country. That the evils we are seeing now in the open have always been there, hidden from me, sheltered by my privilege. However, what I've also realized in confronting my grief at the loss of my mother is that the death of my mother's body, her corporeal self, has not and will never mean the loss or the death of her spirit and her gifts to the world. They will live on forever. She lives on in my spirit, in the spirit of my children, and the spirit of everybody that she influenced. Every positive thing and all the positive energy that my mother brought it's still here, still just as real, still just as influential. And in a similar way, the things that I believed about America are still here. They're still available to us. The potential for a true, transformative, and radical freedom that was promised. The promise of an American dream that entails lifting ourselves so that we can lift each other. That's the true American dream. And it's not dead. I know that because yesterday at the No Kings rally, I saw once again the power of community and the love that exists in the heart of the majority of people in this country. I saw that American spirit. I saw that American dream. And just as I'm supported by my mother's energy that lives forever in me, I am motivated and I am energized by the American spirit that is not represented by the Christo-fascists that currently appear to hold power, but instead represented by the compassionate, by the fair-minded, by the just populace that is truly the power source of this country. We are the power source of this country. And to truly meet this moment, as Reverend Horan said, in addition to understanding this collective power of love that is ever present, unfortunately, to meet this moment, we still have to entertain the grief. Many of us feel the grief I talked about. And we still and must confront the troubling realities that actually define this moment that they were talking about. So today I'll start with the hard truth. We have tragically become an authoritarian-led nation. There are many sources one can turn to understand what that means. The author Umberto Eco wrote an essay that lists features that are typical of what he calls ur-fascism or eternal fascism. They include things like a cult of tradition. You do it just because it's tradition, or the rejection of modernism, or the fear of difference, or permanent warfare, or Orwellian news speak, fake news, and more. He writes that they are enough, these things, that one of them be present to allow fascism to coagulate around it. We have a number of them present. Rachel Maddow, in her podcast Ultra, which was based on her book Prequel, she charts, quote, the rise of a wild American strain of authoritarianism that has been alive on the far right edge of our politics for the better part of a century. These things that were hidden to me. Read Prequel, listen to Ultra. You'll hear this history of the rise of authoritarianism before I even knew anything about it. Robert Reich, the eminent economist, talks about authoritarianism and fascism extensively on YouTube in ways most everybody can understand. So any student of history can clearly see the parallels between our country's current regime and other authoritarian regimes. In fact, the current fascists themselves have documented their plan for an authoritarian state in Project 2025. It's documented. You can read it. They're saying it. They're not hiding it. However you come to the information, we all must understand what we are dealing with in order to reverse course. The framework that has really helped me, that has best clarified what this all means for me, is called the 10 Steps. And it's laid out by Stacey Abrams of Georgia in her campaign of the same name, the 10 Steps. And you can find them at 10stepscampaign.org, 10 being the number. They are the following disturbing truths. 1, win the last fair election. Autocrats often come to power, historically, through democratic means, and then they ensure it's the last free election. 2, expand executive power. Push executive authority beyond legal boundaries, testing what the system will tolerate. 3, capture the other branches. Co-opt Congress and neutralize the judiciary, eliminating checks and balances. 4, gut the civil service. Fire competent, nonpartisan civil servants who might resist illegal orders. 5, install loyalists. Replace qualified officials with loyalists to weaponize government agencies. 6, attack the media. Discredit independent journalism and replace it with state propaganda. 7, scapegoat vulnerable communities. Blame minorities and immigrants and marginalized groups for national problems and demonize diversity, equity, and inclusion. 8, I know this is hard. We're almost coming to the end. But we have to admit these things are happening. Destroy support systems. Dismantle institutions that protect rights. Legal aid, universities, advocacy groups. 9, normalize violence, militarize law enforcement, and foment state-sanctioned or private violence to silence dissent. And 10, end democracy itself. Disrupt election systems and restrict who can vote so no meaningful opposition ever wins again. Whoo! Okay. The reason I love Abrams' framing is not only because it's simple and straightforward, it's because she also lists the 10 steps to freedom and power. Yes, bring them on. She writes that, quote, defeating authoritarianism, it's not this cinematic moment. It's what so many demonstrated yesterday. It's thousands of individual, community, and institutional actions, thousands of them that are stronger and more consistent than those who would oppress us. 1, commit. Understand what's happening. That's what we're talking about. Not simply the headlines, but the effects of policies on you and your community. Our strength lies in numbers. We had 40,000 in Torrance alone yesterday. Join in. 2, it may have been 40,002. I didn't get the exact count. It was close. 2, share. Stay informed. Share the facts on social media, in group chats, in your circles. Not just why you care, but how you are taking action. Remember, others feel this way too. 3, organize. Create a group of friends, family, and allies who want to work towards a common goal. Pick your issue. There's so many, but pick yours. That's it. That's organizing. 4, mobilize. Once you've organized, do something. Share banned books. Help immigrants. Join a tenants union. Host public events and regular conversations. We're talking to LA Voice in our social justice meeting tomorrow about hosting house parties. It's not about size. It's about movement. And 5, litigate. You don't have to be an attorney to be part of litigation. If you or someone you know has been harmed, be a plaintiff. Be a witness. If you are in the legal field, volunteer to help vulnerable populations. 6, disrupt. Don't be part of their system of disinformation or compliance. Protest, then do more. Like film violations of civil rights. Yeah, I don't understand anyway. Or hand out Know Your Rights cards. We have plenty of Know Your Rights cards in the office in occupied cities. Block propaganda. Call out propaganda. 7, deny. Refuse to be complicit in how authoritarians strip us of our language, of our engagement, and our connections. You saw the army generals silently dissent. You see the news media right now saying, no, we won't sign those pledges. Universities saying, no, we deny. Create community, practice nonviolent civil disobedience, and boycott groups that are hurting us. 8, engage. Work with your local elected officials to introduce policies and proactive legislation, especially at the state and local levels. Do it yourself if the rules allow it. Start ballot initiatives, public petitions, and more. 9, elect. Federal elections are crucial, but we cannot forget that harm can come at every level of government. So can change. Change can come at every level of government. We must give people something to believe in again. So participate in your local elections for city council, for county commissioner, for state legislator, judicial elections, every single one. And 10, demand. It's not enough to just reclaim what we had. We must demand more and build a better government. We have the opportunity to do that. So be clear about what we deserve from our allies and from those who would destroy democracy. Don't meekly ask for what we think we can get. Declare what kind of country we intend to build, and then let's get to work. Those are her 10 of hope. 10 steps. So yes, it's important, as I said, to understand this moment, to start to address it. But Abrams reminds us that we don't need to be experts. We don't need permission. We just need to start. Start where you are, with what you have, among those you know. Just as my mother's spirit lives on, I know there's a powerful American spirit that is not represented by the current administration. They represent nothing that is American. I know that tapping into that spirit, so strongly represented in this congregation and everyone who showed up at the rally and every other rallies, that spirit will lead us to grieve. Tapping into that spirit will lead us to grieve an America we thought we knew. The one I've been grieving. But more importantly, that spirit will lead us to reclaim an America that we love and that we can be proud of. Because Meet the Moment work calls on our Unitarian Universalist values. Beginning in 2026, I'll be teaching a class on Unitarian Universalism, including history and everything about UUism, to ground us in our tradition so we can meet the moment grounded in our tradition. It'll start in January. And the Unitarian Universalist Association has provided resources which we will also use in that class to bookmark this deeper dive into Unitarian Universalism. Please look out for those dates and the registration link. But if you want to get started now, the UUA and other partners are offering a variety of opportunities. Some of the most creative, faithful leaders from across the UU ecosystem will be leading topic-oriented wave cohorts. I'm a part of one of the wave cohorts. They're praxis groups where people are invited, anyone's invited to learn and innovate and practice new ways of embodying our living tradition together in these times. You can find those resources at uua.org/congregation/meet the moment. I'll send it out in the newsletter. A lot of politicians today are claiming that progressives, that some people hate America. I love America. The America represented by the millions who came out yesterday to reclaim their country from those who would destroy the true American way. This isn't about politics. It is, but it isn't. But this is about values, especially the American value of equitable freedom for all. Working together, I am confident that we can create an America that is defined not by hate, but by true liberty for all. Will you join me? Thank you.